Hi, in today's video I will show you the forehand. I will show you unit turn, racket path, the contact point and the finish. If you're new to this channel, my name is Patrik Broddfelt, a tennis coach in Norway. Let's get started with the grip. There's different variations on the grip. The most common is the Eastern forehand. If you take your hand like this and down, you will have Eastern grip. Or you can also have a semi-Western grip. Lay a racket on the ground, pick it up, you will have a semi-Western. So on the Eastern forehand, you will have an index finger here on this bevel. On the semi-Western, you will have on this bevel here, this one here. That's the most common used grip in today's game. Anything between those two grips, it's perfect to use. I wouldn't recommend to use a Western grip. Okay, so the first step is to have a split step. What will happen now, you have a racket in your forehand grip, the strings pointing forward a little bit or to the ground. What will happen now, you will have a unit turn. You bring your racket with your non-dominant arm, so you're turning your shoulders. Your right elbow should be up, you're pointing that back like this. So you're turning. Your racket head should be pointing a little bit forward or to the fence over there. So when you get your left arm to the chest around here, you will release and continue turning and stretching that left arm towards the fence. Now the racket is in the perfect position. So make sure you're turning your shoulders, left arm underneath your chin. This elbow can be in different heights. So you can have it lower, you can have it higher. It's all a personal preference and depending on the incoming ball as well. How high is the ball? So when we get to this position here, what you will do then is just drop the racket. You drop a racket to around waist level, or depending on what height you're hitting the ball. But for now, we want to make contact in front of us at waist level around. So I drop it. You can still see that my racket head is pointing 45 degrees back here. And what will happen now, when I turn my hips, the racket will lag like this. So now you will have that butt cap pointing towards the ball. If you're doing this correctly, you don't really have to think about it. It will happen automatically. If you're relaxed in this position here, and then you rotate, and you will make contact somewhere around here. And then you follow through over your shoulder. In this video, I won't talk about the contact point that much, since I've already done a whole video on the contact point. I will link it up here if you want to know more about the contact point. So when you make contact here, what you want to do then is just follow through over the shoulder and catch your racket over here. It can be to the side of the shoulder or over your shoulder. This finish is for beginners, intermediate players. The reason I want you to catch your racket with your non-dominant arm is to make sure you're rotating your shoulders and having control of that left arm. As you're getting better, as you see on TV, you can actually hit here and finish like this. But in the beginning, intermediate player, make sure you catch your racket. What are some common mistakes? Well, first thing is, I see a lot of people doing this. Like in the 80s, used to do like that. It's like make a racket in a C path. And they do this with a racket and arm, and then they hit. So make sure it's your shoulders. If I put my racket on my belly button like this and I turn, you can see my racket is in a perfect position now. I just have to hit forward. So make sure it's just turning, having this elbow still. That's the key. So when I make a uniturn here, I want to make sure this racket is on this side of the chest. I will have lots of space in between here. If I take a racket back with just my arm, this will happen. My racket will be, racket strings will be facing the camera, and the butt cap will be facing that camera. And then I will hit, make contact, and the contact zone will go that way. So all the power will go this way. It will be really, really hard to have control on the ball and to have topspin. So the technique I'm showing today will make it easier for you to hit with topspin. So when you get into this position, what you want to do here is just drop it. What I see a lot of players do in this position is rolling their wrist like this and changing the position of the elbow. You still want to continue with the strings facing towards the ground and just dropping it, letting the gravity drop the racket. So don't roll over like this. Because now as well, the wrist will be very stiff. You won't get this stretch shortening cycle down here. Yes, you can hit it like that, but you won't get this stretch shortening cycle here. And you will lose topspin. Okay, so I have a uniturn. I let my non-dominant arm turning the shoulders. I get the elbow up, turning. I release. When I release here, I still turn a little bit more. So I get the racket back here. I drop, still having the strings on the ground, like petting a dog. From here, I will turn, and this will happen with the racket. And if I want more topspin, I would dip it even more, or just go forward into the contact. Another common mistake I see they have a uniturn and they make a racket go like this. See what happens with my elbow. My forearm is higher than my elbow. This will lead to a too big of a swing. So when I take a racket back here, and you can already see my strings facing the ceiling instead, and I will have too big of a swing. So make sure your elbow going like this and having a uniturn. Don't do this. Uniturn, you see my elbow on forearm, same height. My wrist is a little bit higher. Down into the contact point. So when I make contact, I want to make sure I have a contact point in front of me, in front of that left foot. In my opinion, the contact point is the most important thing in a good forehand. If you have a good contact point, you can still get the shot in. As long as you're hitting the strings, you can just lead the ball, direct the ball into the court. If you're hitting back here, it will be very difficult to direct the ball. So when you make contact here, all you have to do is get this elbow high, left arm, and follow through. Look at my strings, still pointing at the camera. So the strings still pointing at the camera all the way up into the finish. So make sure your strings pointing towards the camera or the net. If your strings go this way, that means you're breaking a path and all the power will go to the side. So you want to make sure after the contact, you finish and catch the racket over the shoulder. Next video I will show the 5 different endings. But as a beginner, intermediate player, make sure you're finishing over your shoulder. If you do that, you will get more control of the ball. I believe as a beginner, intermediate player, the worst thing is having too much racket speed and not controlling the ball. You want to control the ball as a beginner. When you're able to control and get good depth on the ball, you can start to add more spin, more power on your shot. But you have to have the same speed, same control for like 50 shots in a row, not changing the pace and rhythm. So when you start here with the elbow, there's a couple of different beginnings. You can see the professionals do them. Some of them are doing more like this. So we get the racket pointing like this. I find it more difficult to do that, but if you're able to, you might get more acceleration into the shot. You can see Sinner has his racket more like this. Or you can do like I did, elbow up, racket pointing towards the net, strings a little bit down. You can have a little bit more like this as well. You will have the same position. The only problem I have with going too much like this, it's easy to overdo it. You see my racket would travel a bit further back. So make sure the strings pointing a little bit more towards the floor. This position back here might look different depending on what grip you're using as well. So if I'm holding an Eastern grip, my racket would be more like this back here. If I'm holding the semi-Western, it will look like this. If I'm holding a Western grip, it will look more like this. So if you want to copy the professionals and you see some of them have like this, it's probably because they're using a different grip than you, if you look like this. So all those 3 positions are correct. It's all depending on the grip you're using.